Imagine this: a highly publicized case. The media covers every minute detail. The narratives are spun, stories are shaped, and the public opinion is swayed. But here's the question: who's really making the judgment in these cases? The courtroom or the newsroom? Today we are diving into the impact of media on public opinion, especially when media outlets begin to act as though they are the judge, jury, and executioner. When the press shapes public perception before the case even reaches court, what happens to the concept of a fair trial? And what happens when the media takes on a role it was never meant to play? Welcome to episode 4 of The Truth About Legal Journalism, Unfiltered. Part 1 of the lecture is the role of media in shaping public opinion. Let's start with a fundamental question. What role does the media play in shaping public opinion? On one hand, the media is there to inform us, to present facts, and to give us a window into the events happening around us. But on the other hand, the media has immense power to influence how we think about those events. When it comes to legal cases, this role becomes even more complicated. Think about it. Before a court even renders a verdict, the public opinion might already be formed based on what the media has chosen to report. In some cases, the narrative presented by the media can be so persuasive that it ends up influencing the course of the legal proceedings themselves. Part 2 is media as the judge and jury. What happens when the media steps beyond its role as an observer and becomes the judge and jury of the case? This is the crux of the issue with media trials. Instead of providing a balanced, impartial report, the media becomes a platform for subjective judgment. The power to influence is enormous. A biased headline, a sensationalized story, or an inflammatory opinion piece can create a presumption of guilt, regardless of the facts. This is problematic because public opinion, shaped by the media, can affect the legal system in profound ways. Think about how the media focuses on personal stories, scandalous details, or emotional angles rather than the legal facts. This kind of coverage can create a situation where the public sees a defendant as guilty before the trial even begins. Take, for example, the case of Anna Hazare and the anti-corruption movement. The media coverage of the movement had a polarizing effect. Hazare became a symbol of righteousness while the government was depicted as corrupt and dysfunctional. The media's portrayal of the situation affected public opinion so deeply that it created a kind of mob mentality. While the movement was undoubtedly significant, the media's framing led to one-sided public perception of the entire situation. Part 3 is the media and its power to convict before a trial. Consider how the media can sometimes convict someone before a trial even takes place. Let's be clear, when a person is accused of a crime, the presumption of innocence is an essential principle of our legal system. Yet, when the media plays judge, jury, and executioner, this presumption is often shattered. Let's look at the case of the Unnao rape incident. The accused, a prominent politician, was widely portrayed in the media as guilty based on victim's testimony and certain pieces of evidence that had been selectively reported. The media frenzy surrounding the case led to intense public pressure. While the accused was eventually convicted, the sheer extent of media coverage meant that the public had already passed judgment. In the court of public opinion, the accused had already been condemned. The critical question here is, how can a defendant receive a fair trial when the media long before the case is presented in a courtroom has already branded them guilty? Part 4 is the consequences of media trials. What happens when media outlets start to act as though they have already delivered the verdict? For one, it undermines the very core of the legal process. It pressures the judicial system to conform to public opinion instead of focusing on the facts and applying the law impartially. Media-driven public opinion can alter the course of justice. When the press becomes more about spectacle than about fact, it damages the entire legal framework that ensures justice. A few of the consequences include prejudicing the jury or public. By constantly putting out narratives, media coverage can influence how people, whether jurors or general public, see the case. This compromises the fairness of trial. Number 2 is rushed legal proceedings. Under pressure from public outcry driven by media, law enforcement and judicial bodies can expedite their proceedings, leading to decisions based on sentiment rather than legal reasoning. Third, defamation and permanent damage to reputation. Even if someone is acquitted, the media's portrayal of their guilt lingers. It's the classic trial by media. This can have lifelong consequences for the person involved. as public perception doesn't always match the legal outcome. Take the case of Riya Chakravarti in the Sushant Singh Rajput case. The media portrayed Riya in such a negative light that she was almost universally branded as guilty, despite the lack of concrete evidence. This led to immense personal and professional damage for her, and it was only later that the media began to backtrack as the case evolved. But by then, the damage to her reputation was already done. Part 5 is how the media manipulates the narrative. Now let's talk about how media outlets manipulate the narrative. The key word here is manipulation. The media, particularly in high-profile cases, has the ability to frame the narrative in such a way that it leads to audience toward a particular conclusion, even before the evidence has been properly examined. Media outlets often focus on specific aspects of the case that are emotionally charged or sensational in nature. They may emphasize dramatic details of the crime, play on public fears, or highlight controversial opinions. Anything to keep viewers hooked, but all of this comes at a cost. It's important to ask ourselves, when is reporting crossed the line into manipulation? And how do we, as consumers of news, become aware of when the narrative is being shaped by powerful media forces? Let's revisit the 2012 Delhi gang rape case. The media was pivotal in bringing national attention to the tragedy. However, much of the coverage also focused on emotionally charged language and sensationalizing certain aspects of the crime. The effect was twofold. While the attention the media gave the case was crucial for raising awareness about gender-based violence, it also painted the very one-sided portrayal of the events and the accused. Part 6 is the role of social media in the evolution of media trials. In the age of social media, traditional media's power to shape public opinion has only grown. Now, anyone with a smartphone or a social media account can be part of the trial. Social media amplifies every word, every post, and every opinion, often before the facts are fully known. This shift has intensified the impact of media trials. Consider the 2002 Gujarat riots case. Social media, including WhatsApp, Twitter, and Facebook, became crucial in spreading misinformation and amplifying biases. Memes, posts, and videos were circulated that framed the events in a very particular light. The line between fact and fiction became blurred, and public opinion was often shaped by highly emotional narratives. Social media has made media trials even more dangerous. Not only can traditional media outlets play judge, but now ordinary individuals can contribute to the shaping of narratives for better or for worse. Part 7 is how can we combat the harmful effects of media trials? So what can be done to combat the harmful effects of media trials? This is not an easy problem to solve, but there are steps that can be taken by journalists, media outlets, and the public alike. First is media accountability. Journalists and news outlets must be held accountable for the way they report on legal cases. They should ensure that they don't cross the line into sensationalism and should always try to present the facts objectively. Second is legal safeguards. Laws protecting against media trials should be strengthened. The media should not be allowed to publish defamatory content that can harm the reputation of individuals without concrete evidence. Third is public awareness. We, as consumers of media, must be critical of what we read and watch. We must learn to question biased narratives and always look for multiple perspectives on a case before passing judgment. Media trials are not just a problem for the accused. They are a problem for the entire legal system. They undermine the principle of fairness, erode the public's trust in the justice system, and create a dangerous precedent for how cases should be reported. We all have a role to play in ensuring that the media remains an impartial observer rather than an active participant in the legal process. As consumers of news, it's a responsibility to demand more from the media and hold them accountable for how they cover important cases. Thank you for joining us in episode 4 of The Truth About Legal Journalism Unfiltered. Stay tuned for more in-depth discussions on how the intersection of law and media impacts our world. Until next time, keep questioning, keep thinking critically, and always fight for justice. This is Amod Viduri. We will meet again in the next